Welcome to Altar of the Demo Gods. If you're wondering what advice from two experienced sales engineers sounds like, it's a little like this.
Welcome back to Altar of the Demo Gods. I'm Keith Wilson, joined by my co-host, John Morton. John, how you doing this evening?
Hola, Keith.
Hola. Hola. I've been doing Duolingo, so hola, John. Senor
they're
John.
through the roof, by the way. Their stock is doing extremely well, thanks to you.
I'm not a paying customer yet. They haven't converted me yet. They will eventually.
They can sponsor us.
They will eventually. I mean, the way the platform's set up, for anybody listening that has heard of a product-led growth strategy, like these guys, they have mastered it. They pull off every little psychological trick in the book to keep you interested and try and hook you in. They'll get me eventually. They don't have me yet, but they will get me eventually.
Hey, I didn't even know that's how they worked, so good.
Yeah. They've got the freemium model, right? And they really know how to get you out of free and into the paid subscription.
Good.
And to also keep you using the product too. Like that's a whole other thing, is just keeping people continuously using the apps and these short attention spans that we have. But I digress.
All I know is I saw their logo get a BBL. That bird, that green bird during the Super Bowl, got a BBL.
It's a BBL.
A Brazilian butt lift.
Oh, okay. It had a big butt.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the Super Bowl. I didn't even watch the commercials this year.
Well, Duolingo had a great commercial with the BBL. We'll leave it at that.
All right.
Anybody wants to go query it, let us know your results for BBL Duolingo.
All right. I'm going to have to look that up now.
Yeah, man,
awesome. I'll never look at that bird the same again.
I love it.
But we digress. In this episode, we're going to be talking about time management for sales engineers. Before we do that, I want to recap last episode. We talked about presentation skills, why you want to do public speaking, all that good stuff. We talked about knowing your audience and how that's important to have the foundation of what it is that you're going to talk about and how you're going to talk about and how you know how deep to go and how broad to go. Toastmasters. Sign up for Toastmasters. If you're afraid to do public speaking, Toastmasters will help you. If you're experienced public speaking, Toastmasters will help you. Go sign up for Toastmasters. Great organization, nonprofit organization, I believe. Even if they're not, they're still worth the money. It's not expensive. And clean presentations. The presentation is there to support you, not the other way around. Your slide deck shouldn't be telling the story for you. You should be the one telling the story. John, anything you want to share from last episode that really resonated with you?
Yeah, just a couple of points. Like Frank Herbert said in Dune, I must not fear. Fear is the mind killer. Get out there and do it. People will be happy to rally behind you in a public speaking experience. They want to hear from your unbiased new opinion. Keep it simple and clear is kind, right? Clear and concise always goes a long way, as long as having an agenda. Tell people who you are, tell them what you're going to talk to them about, tell them that thing, and carry on.
Yeah, and when you do that public speaking, I want you to email us at demogodspod@gmail.com to tell us about it. So you can tell us, hey, I did it. I went and did the public speaking. We'll be there. We'll support you. We'll give you a shout out.
And now you're Tony Robbins making millions of dollars and you want to sponsor me and Keith. So
I don't know if it'll be quite that sort of rags to riches story, but I guess one can hope.
You never know.
Yeah.
TikTok famous.
In this week's episode, we're going to be talking about time management. This is super important to me. So important to me that whenever I have employees that do work for me, whether they report to me or not, I have a particular LinkedIn learning training course that I ask them to take. And I believe it's like a 4-hour course, and it's all about time management. And it's one that I took a few years ago that changed my professional life. I used to get things done in spite of my poor time management skills. I used to think it was because I was successful because of my poor time management skills, like that it propelled me with procrastination. I got stuff done, yada, yada, yada. No. I was successful in spite of it. And once I actually learned some time management skills and put things into practice, it accelerated so many other things for me. It freed up time for me to do so much more than most people can get done, right? And still be productive without stressing too much. John, how do you feel about time management? How are you with time management?
God, man. My goodness, Keith. Anybody who knew me from high school through my first attempt at college knows I was a terrible human being. It wasn't until I was enlisted in the U.S. Navy where they taught me the true meaning of time management. And now to this day, to your point, if I didn't have discipline around time management, I would be an utter wreck of an individual, not just in work life, just generally. I'm talking about things like waking up at the same time, making my bed, working out. Like time management goes a lot farther than just in your day to day and like maybe managing a meeting. It goes like in your whole life. Like you only have so much time in a day, you only have so much time in a year, so much time in life. You have to manage that. And I like to think now I'm actually an expert at it, but it took quite a while and quite a bit of discipline to get there.
Yeah, you're right. It's a precious commodity, and too many people take it for advantage, right? Waste away wasting time, right? Now, that's not to say like that you have to always be productive, because that's insane. I think the hustle
that's different.
I think the hustle culture is nuts and not good for our mental well-being. So I don't think you should be hustling all the time, right? Because that's not good either. Breaks help as well, but we don't need to get into that. What we're talking about today is time management.
Yeah, the time you're dedicating to doing a task, which may be in this case your job of technical sales, you have to manage that time. You have to defend that time, to your point, Keith, to the death. I respect people who defend their time more than people who let me abuse their time. Let's put it that way.
Yeah. So, and that reminds me, and I'm going to start talking about my method of time management with this. If you don't own your calendar, somebody else will.
Oh, 1,000%.
Yeah. So here's my simple sort of time management method is I create a to-do list just like everybody else. I check things off my to-do list when I schedule them on my calendar. This forces me to look at my time realistically and say, these are the things and visually too, right? I've got a list of things I have to do. Logically, in order to get these things done, I have to have the time to do them. So I'm going to guess within 15-minute increments, 15, 20, 30-minute increments, how long something's going to take me. And then I'm going to schedule accordingly. Now, this is great too, because if something else comes up later, I still need to do that to do, but I can just shift it around on my calendar to an open spot, right? Like I can move things around, and it gives me visualization on my priorities and all sorts of important things. But it's just simply taking what's on my to-do list, and instead of checking it off when it's done, I check it off when I put it on my calendar. That's it.
Yeah. I'm even worse, Keith. I'm at the point now where I tell people, like, when they're like, hey, do you think we could schedule a meeting for so-and-so? If they're internal and they don't have access to it, I'm like, my answer, my calendar's up to date. Yeah. What that means is you can go look at my calendar because I'm saying I own this time and pick anything around it. Mm-hmm. Now, that's kind of aggressive. Maybe if you're kind of junior, you can't do that, right? But realistically, anybody who has access to it, I want them to.
Well, you can, but you can phrase it this way, because I do this as well, and I'm not junior by any means, but I still phrase it this way, and I say, go ahead and schedule something. If you can't find a slot, talk to me, and I can probably move some stuff around.
Yeah.
Like there's not a ton of stuff on my calendar that has to be done when it's there, because like I said, I schedule all my to-dos, right? I can move those around. That's up to me of when those get done.
That's a really good point, Keith, because what I mean by that too is like, I'm like, look, For me, sales is my priority. Meeting with new customers, my new customers are my priority. So for internal folks, things I have on my calendar are locked for that reason. But for an external person that I want to meet with or I want to spend time with to move a sale along, that's exactly the tactic. Hey, what worked for you? Give me a couple of times and we'll figure it out. I do like tools like Outlook, and I'm sure we'll cover it in a minute, that you can share with somebody. Here's the times I'm free. But again, it's more to that point of I'm willing to accommodate what you need, but I'm just letting you know I also have things that I have to do. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And I mean, and that's the great part too, right? Is if my calendar is pretty full, say, on Thursday, I'm booked all day, but on Friday, I've got the afternoon open, but I've got a coworker who's like, Keith, I really need to talk to you on Thursday, but you are slammed. I can say, hold on. Let me take a look, and I'll ask them like, well, what works for you? Give me some options here. And then I'll look and see what I've got scheduled for those things. And it may just be stuff that I can simply move to the next day, to Friday, because it's on, again, these are tasks that I need to do. And if they're tasks that don't need to be done right away, maybe this call that I have with somebody is a higher priority, which we're going to talk about prioritizing here in a minute, then I can just replace it, right? I can put that in and I can move the other block of time around, and it's all visual, right? So it just makes it very easy to get your to-dos done.
Yeah.
With reminders.
Very simple things. To make it real, I think it comes down to communication too. Kind of what we're saying is like, I'm communicating that I have things on my calendar, but I want to work with you. Case in point, me and Keith, we weren't going to record this podcast tonight because I had to travel for some customers. Well, that changed. That changed last minute, and I didn't have to travel. And I reached out to Keith straight away, and I said, Keith, you're a priority. Our podcast, what we do, can we make it work tonight? And we worked it out. So it's kind of about just communicating, your time and the time slots you have, and just seeing if that works.
Yep.
But again, it's two-sided. It's not one way.
Yeah. Make sure you're also blocking off time for things like breaks, because that is still part of your day, especially lunch. Like, actually, when people go, I haven't had time to eat lunch. I get it. Like, there's some days where, you don't have time to eat lunch. It happens. That shouldn't be an everyday thing, though. Like, you're not managing other people are managing your time if you're unable to eat lunch every day. Because of
man, that's a sin. That is a misappropriation of your time management. Or if I look at your calendar and it's blocked all the way through, like with half-hour windows from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m., again, kind of like what Keith's saying, like, is lunch part of that? Like, anyways.
Yeah.
I'm passionate about this.
So let's talk about prioritizing. Very simple way to prioritize is, let's see, I'm gonna draw it out here. We're gonna whiteboard it on my handy dandy notepad. I even got
my whiteboard set up.
So you're gonna draw across like that, right? So you've got stuff that is going to be important and stuff that is going to be urgent. Oh man, this pen stinks.
The jinx of the demo.
I know.
The jinx of the demo.
Even going low tech, it doesn't work. Okay, so let's go ahead.
I'll whiteboard it out for you, Keith.
Let's see if I can get my pen to work.
Tell me if you can see this on my screen.
I can. All right. So yeah, we're gonna go with John's whiteboard. So
is this the middle?
you're gonna give me a cross there, right? So on going up, that is going to be things that are important. The higher up it is on the list, those are things that are important. At the bottom of that are things that are not important. Right? So, yeah. So then going from left to right, you're going to have things on the left that are not urgent. On the right, things that are urgent. Right? So we're going to have urgent on the right. Yeah. So you're going to plot things, your to-do list. If you're truly confused, do this on paper. Eventually you'll be able to do it in your head, right? So we've got quadrants here. You're going to have things that are not important and not urgent, and that's going to go in that bottom left-hand quadrant. You're going to have things that are important but not urgent, and that's going to go in that top left-hand quarter. There you go. Then you're going to have things that are not important but urgent. That's going to be the bottom right-hand quarter. And then the things that you must get done immediately are all going to be that top right-hand corner in the urgent and important, right? That's the magic quadrant that, that everybody wants to be in. So that's it, right? That's a very simple way of prioritizing. So I personally will start with the things that are important and urgent, and then I'll move to the things that are unimportant and urgent. Yeah. Then move to the things that are important, not urgent, and very last, not urgent, not important, right? So that's how you should prioritize. That's how you should be thinking about things. I feel like we crossed the fourth wall here with that awesome drawing there, Keith. Maybe it'll get us more video listeners. I know, right? I just installed this whiteboard today, so I had this opportunity to use it, and we did. And what I normally do in your exact phrasing, but to rephrase it, is I organize and prioritize my day based on that. Like, and how do you categorize or prioritize those things? What I put in your category, your quadrant of urgent and important, are things that drive revenue, that impact me professionally or, personally, right? Like if I have to go to the doctor, dude, that's important to me, right? And it's urgent if it's urgent, right? Yeah. You got a burning sensation. You better get in there. I'm not saying that's me. That's for effect. But, you got to still balance out the, personal and professional in your urgent and important scenarios. Sure. Right. Yeah. So that's how you prioritize. And with that prioritization, having your to-do list, you can put it in your calendar, you can schedule it. That's my method. Something else that you should schedule every day is really time to plan the day. I call it processing time. During my processing time, that's when I go through my email inbox. I go through a physical inbox that I have in my office where I drop papers, right? So everything gets processed out of that. Whether it gets shredded, goes in the trash, gets scanned, it gets processed. My emails, they get processed. Are they going to generate an action that I need to schedule? Or do I need to delete them, right? You should schedule time each day for processing. You're going to probably want a lot at first, like 30 minutes to an hour each day at first until you get used to it. And that's where you go through your to-do list and you go and you check and you put it in the calendar during that processing time, right? You're processing all these different things to set yourself up for the rest of the day. Yeah. So it's important to have that too. There is administration that you have to do on yourself as a sales engineer. Your schedule is usually the only other person aside from you that has a say in your schedule is your sales reps. That's usually it. Yeah, 100%. Or like depending on your chain of authority, but your AE, whoever you work with, and then maybe some authoritarian thing. One thing I want to sprinkle in there, Keith, that I think about too is I like to start my day kind of with like 30, 45 minutes of getting ready. And that could be like, making coffee, making sure my desk is set up, making sure I understand what my calendar looks like. 30, 45 minutes. Me and Keith, I was saying this earlier, I'm getting old now. I got to make sure I know what my day looks like. Mm-hmm. And also that same sort of 30, 45 minutes at the end of the day. What do I got to do tomorrow? What do I got to do the rest of the week? What do I owe for follow-ups on emails or, setting up some sort of technical detail? So giving myself that extra hour and a half to just like get my head together, man. I'm not the smartest guy. If I don't put these things into order, I'm going to fail. So don't forget to kind of put that at the buffer at the beginning and end of your day. You don't want to wake up, jump straight into a meeting and then end your day, in the same way. Put in a buffer. Yeah. Yeah. I know for me, one of the biggest sort of time wasters is something called task switching. Right. So this is a time waster. This is something to avoid. task switching gives me a visceral reaction. It causes, and it'll make you stressed. It's inefficient. It's not the way to work. And task switching is what most people refer to as multitasking. It's the myth of multitasking. Anybody that tells you, "Oh, I'm a great multitasker. I can do 10 things at once." No, you can do 10 things poorly at once. Nobody's a good multitasker. It's not possible. You only have one brain. You can only focus on one thing at a time. So switch tasking is what we tell ourselves is multitasking. That's where we go back and forth between doing different things, right? That's not an efficient way to work at all. At all. Scheduling, again, in blocks of time around certain themes of things that I'm doing, right? Super helpful. Super helpful. Trying to keep things, all sort of in the same vein, right? So, for example, if I'm going to record video for a class, well, I'm also going to schedule time right around there to record video for promotions, for different social media things. But I'm going to, or I may spend that time writing scripts, right? Because it's still somewhat related. It's still keeping my brain in a similar mode. And it's also, because I've allotted the time on a calendar that I'm going to dedicate this much time to a thing, it allows me to focus on just that one thing and nothing else.
Yeah. Keith knows better than anybody else, man. My attention span is like that of a squirrel. Like, if I don't do things in that sequential order, that task switching would be overwhelming. So, kind of in that same vein, right? If you're working on something, recording videos, try to do them together, right? If you're, things that align, I think is what Keith's saying, try to do them together. That way you don't have to switch everything all at once. You're doing it. You're already there. You're already doing it. Just get it done. I agree, man. Otherwise, I'm going to be radically distracted.
Yeah. So I'll give a practical example of this and how I sort of theme things. For my job, I have to wear multiple hats. One of those hats is somebody who troubleshoots and manages and is a product manager for the learning management system that runs the website that my whole education system is based on, right? So I have to have the engineering mindset of that. So I will try and keep all activities around that scheduled together, whether it's planning for new features, or it's troubleshooting problems, or it's organizing projects along the lines of that learning management system. The other part of my job is the content side, right? So like we just talked about, I'll record a course, I'll record video advertisements, I'll record social media videos, I'll write course material, I'll write that advertising material. That's the other part of my job too. And then there's the manager / leadership part of it that has to do all the admin stuff, right? That has to work with different vendors. And so I try and schedule all that stuff to be around the same thing. That's not to say that I will spend a full day dedicated to it, because it's nice to break things up too, right? Like, I understand I don't want to sit and write a course all day, so I may spend the morning writing and then the afternoon working on LMS things, right? So, but it's a good way to still stay with the flow, but also break up your day. And that's not switch tasking, because I've scheduled time where I'm focusing on that thing and that thing alone.
Yeah. Yeah, and I guess it's relative to what you do. Kind of Key's example is pretty pointed, right? Like, and you'll figure it out as you go. I don't think you can come into it straight away knowing. It takes a little bit of time, but once you can kind of organize your day into like-minded or like associated themes, it works so much better.
Yeah. Before we wrap up, because it's just about that time, believe it or not, this is a fun show. I really enjoy time management. I've seen it just, when people learn how to do it properly, I've seen it just improve their overall happiness, their efficiency in getting things done. So I really enjoy it. Before we wrap up the episode, I want to talk about one last pretty important part of time management. That's maintaining work-life balance. What's something you do to maintain work-life balance, John?
Oh man, this is gonna sound detrimental to my own effect, but I actually combine the two to some degree. For most folks that don't know me, Keith and everyone else that's ever met me in person, I run quite the gamut on my weight. I've been as high as like 280 pounds, as low as 215 pounds. Why am I saying that? I like to include working out as part of my day. Like, I like to work out in the middle of the day. It's kind of contrary to what most people do. They want to work out early or later. I like to
Yeah,
work out in the middle,
I'm a
man.
morning workout guy.
Yeah, I like to work out right in the middle of my day. And what it does for me is it like if I'm having a bad day, it clears that out. If I'm getting prepped for my afternoon, it gets me ready, right? So I try to balance out things like working out, going for a walk, calling somebody in my work day because I have the ability to do that. So I can kind of just remind myself that this whole day's not lost to work. I'm doing things that are good for me and that I wanted to do as well. So I
Yeah.
try to kind of blend the two. It's kind of counterintuitive to what most people may say, but that's something I do.
No, I mean I get it. It's part of, it's part of working from home now. The
Hmm.
two are going to blend. But you need to plan for them to blend, right? So you avoid
Yeah.
switch tasking. Because then what'll happen is so another time management technique that we didn't really talk about, it's very simple. It's called time boxing. And it's basically you go, okay, I'm going to do this thing and I'm only doing it for 30 minutes. You set a timer. Once that timer goes off, you stop doing it, right? That's really good for if you're trying to break bad habits and time wasters, social media, video games, stuff like
What,
that.
scrolling Instagram and sending people awesome pictures, I find?
Yeah. Yeah. If you're trying to kill
I'm
those
going to time box that.
time wasters, time boxing helps. But yeah, you should still manage to time box in some work events or some life things. I mean, I'll get some
Yeah.
chores done, around the house too when I'm taking a break, because everybody needs a break from work, right? If you were working in an office, you'd still take breaks. The only difference is here, I'll go down and fold laundry.
Yeah, make my bed.
I'll step out of my office and fold laundry. And also I think that's another good point, working from home. I had the luxury of having an office. John has the luxury of having an office. I know a lot of people don't have that. And my heart breaks for you, but you should have some sort of work space. You've got to try and find an area where you just work. For me, for a while, when I was in an apartment, I had this what was supposed to be the dining room. I'd kind of walled off with a bookshelf and tucked into the little corner there, right? And that was my work area. And that was just so, even though I was sitting in the living room and I could see through the bookshelf, there was still that separation that told me work's over, you're at home, right?
Yeah.
You don't have to do any work anymore. I think another thing too is just, and having it on the calendar helps understanding how much work you're actually doing. And it does what you kind of hit on at the beginning too, a broadcast what you're doing so you can account for your time as well. If you
Yeah,
ever get that
100%.
question from your boss, what have you been doing? What have you been doing for the last month? What have you been doing for the last week? Well, hold on. Let me pull up my calendar. I can tell you exactly what I've been doing.
Oh, baby. Yeah, we can dive into this if you want.
I can tell you exactly what I've been doing and for how long. Right.
Mm-hmm.
So it's great. Man, I keep coming up with more things. So I want to say one more thing that just popped in my head to a nice little tip.
Share it, Keith.
And this goes for prioritization. Sometimes your boss is going to give you things that conflict with your priorities. If the person that has authority over you is making your priorities conflict, make them deconflict those priorities. Say, I have these two things that are both important and urgent. Which one which one is a higher priority?
You need me to finish this deck, and I also have this burning sensation.
Yes.
You help me understand the priority here. We might have crossed some boundaries that gets, me in HR, but, to Keith's point, I didn't mean to take away from it. They can help you because, hey, we all got priorities.
All right. It's that time now. We're going to wrap up the episode. So I'm going to go ahead and summarize. For me, put your to-do list on a calendar, make sure it's scheduled, and your life will be so much easier. I promise. It takes a little bit of getting used to, but once you get it down, it's great. Don't forget to schedule time for processing. Don't forget to schedule breaks. Don't forget to schedule time for lunch. And it forces you to realistically look at your schedule. So be real with your schedule. It helps you communicate, which John said is an important piece of this. And I agree. Not to sound like we have differing opinions on that. And then just maintaining the work-life balance, right? Making sure that you can try and separate work when you need to, but also, on breaks, if you need to get some chores done around the house to break up the day, that's an efficient use of time. John, what are your thoughts for today's show?
Yeah, same thing, Keith, right? Like, it's okay to say, I live and die by my calendar. It's okay to make that statement to somebody and own your time. Time management is critical, including discipline. Discipline doesn't have to be like a intense regiment of working out, but having a cadence to your day will make it so much easier when you have that routine. So, take pride in that routine, and it's okay to get excited when you deviate a little, but understand, to Keith's point, things come up. If you have good time management, you can account for those conflicts. So
yeah,
those are my things there, Keith.
And with that being said, respect other people's time. Like, show up on time, right? If you're, what's the military saying? If you're on time, you're late.
If you're on time, you're late, man. Nothing kills me more too than if you do agree to take somebody's time and then you don't show up. Oh man.
Yeah.
That is detrimental.
Obviously, everybody makes mistakes. Sometimes there's scheduling mishaps and stuff like that, but at least be apologetic for it and just
be a decent human being.
Be a decent human being. Respect other people's time, because, like we started this episode talking about, time is a valuable commodity. John, I had a great time. I had a blast this week. I hope our listeners had a blast, and I hope you'll join us next week as well.
Dang it, we didn't get a double down on BBL. That should have been our acronym of the day.
We'll save it for next week. So that's going to be your homework assignment, viewers, listeners. You're going to find the BBL Duolingo and let us know what you think, right? Make sure that you send those pictures to demogodspod@gmail.com, along with your questions for the show. If you have questions for the show or think you'd be a good guest, you can email us at demogodspod@gmail.com. If you enjoy the show, please like, share, subscribe, all that stuff. Tell your friends about us. We're everywhere that you get podcasts. We're also on YouTube. If you need links to where to find us, you can go to demogodspod.com, where we also have articles and all sorts of things to help you as a sales engineer. I don't know what we're talking about next week because I don't have it on my handy dandy thing, and I wasn't prepared enough. That's all right. It'll be a surprise to you and us when we talk to you next week on Altar of the Demo Gods.